What's going on, everybody? My name is Ben, and welcome back to the bench for another episode of the Lando Falcon here on Sci-Fi Wednesdays. I went ahead and took a couple of days off there from the bench for the extended holiday weekend, but we are back. So let's go ahead and jump in, see what we can do. Now, we're going to go ahead and pick up right where we left off last time, and I'm going to go ahead and move into the internal areas, the living quarters slash like entertainment area here for the Lando Falcon, and I'm hoping to go ahead and figure out how this all goes together so I can start kind of thinking of what I can do to maybe spice up the area just a little bit. Maybe add in some lights, maybe do some scratch building, just stuff like that. So I think we're going to go ahead and do some dry fitting and just kind of get this all mocked up, see how it goes together. Now, the nice thing about Bandai kits is all of their parts are usually very well engineered. So I'm not really that worried about this fitting together. Everything is going to drop right into place and it's going to be very secure and very stable. That's the nice thing about Bandai kits is all their parts kind of interlock in a very kind of puzzle piece that then makes a very nice, very sturdy sub-assembly. And this is actually no different. As we can see here, the entire part is all mocked up and we've got a lot of detail, like we have switches, consoles, side panels, furniture. We even have a little wet bar over there in the corner. We have a lot of beautiful detail already molded in place. So that is really, really nice. But of course, I want to go ahead and do a little bit of scratch building and customization. So we're going to go ahead and take this apart, and I want to do some work on the seat that sits there right in front of the kind of computer area. And I also want to go ahead and fill in those locating tabs, not only on the seat, but also on that circular seating arrangement as well. Now, in most references I've seen, this chair right here in front of this console is actually a swivel chair. So let's go ahead and jump into our time lapse. We're going to modify that. We're going to do some sanding, some filling, do some scratch building. We're going to start having some fun, guys. Let's go ahead and get this started, see what we can do. All right, everybody, we are back, and that went beautifully. I had a lot of fun kind of scratch building that chair, and like I said, the references show it to be more of a swivel chair, and so I went ahead and scratch built that, made a little bit of a support with some stretched sprue, punched out a disc of plasticard, which then I used for the base, and then glued everything together, so it looks pretty cool. We've gone ahead and shifted over to the cockpit. I'm doing a little bit of work here with some Army Painter soft wash, just to kind of bring out some texture and some details, and then we need to figure out how to go ahead and string up the SMDs. So that's kind of our next hurdle. control. Now for our lights, I do intend on using these little SMDs, and I'm going to bend them at pretty much a 45-degree angle, and I'm going to tuck them up into the footwell, meaning that they are going to be shining straight back towards the cockpit area for the pilot and the co-pilot. That's going to hopefully illuminate a lot of those details right in front, and will add a little bit of extra interest and some shadows that might look kind of neat. I'm not sure how it's all going to kind of pan out, but I'm hoping that's going to cut down on the light emitting forward through the front of the cockpit canopy, but it might not. We might have to come in and do a little bit of work at some point. Once I have these bent into place, we can then go ahead and tack them down with a little bit of hot glue. I've got my glue gun heating up in the background. Then we should be able to secure those in place and then just feed the wires right between the cockpit tub and the outer cockpit shell. Luckily, these wires are very thin, very tiny, so we're not really going to interfere too much with pinching any of these wires and not allowing the cockpit tub to sit down snugly where it's supposed to go. With our hot glue, we're just going to drop a little bit of glue right in the front there, and then we'll just push this SMD right up into that. We'll get that glued into place just like this. And then once that solidifies up, we can then go ahead and bend it down so that the wires sit really, really flush to the floor, and that we don't have any issues with snagging wires. Not actually that difficult to do. I'm hoping that with this is going to go ahead and shine a very nice blue glow over the front of the cockpit. It won't be 100% accurate, but then again, with this scale, I'm not too worried about it. It's really, really difficult to light anything with such a small kit as this. So this way we can at least add a little bit of interest and we can have some fun with some LEDs. So I think we're on the right track with that. Let's drop a little bit of glue there. We'll press that light right up into that footwell, make sure that's nice and secured, and we'll move on to the back seats and get those LEDs tacked in as well. Now for the two rearmost SMDs, I'm going to go ahead and glue those to the back of the seats that I'm assuming are going to be either the engineer or maybe a navigator position. I don't really know which. We're going to go ahead and make sure that those lights are facing backwards towards the bulkhead. Again, we're going to bend them at a 45, and I've actually augured out a little bit of an opening in each of the chairs just to make sure that the SMDs don't come in contact with the bulkhead when I go ahead and sandwich it all together. Now let's go ahead and just feed those wires through those openings that I drilled out last episode, slide those together, and then we'll just go ahead and fit that bulkhead onto the cockpit tub. Yeah, perfect. Wires come through, no pinching. So now we go ahead and fit this down into the outer shell. Just to make sure that everything fits, we're going to bend these up a little bit more so that they won't contact anything. Like that. And then once we drop this down inside, we should have basically 4 pairs of wires ready to be attached and grouped together. Might have to move the wires around just a little bit to make sure that they aren't being pinched or anything by the plastics going together, but I think we're looking pretty good. Awesome. Now let's go ahead and put on the very top of the hull itself, and that should complete the look of the cockpit and kind of close everything up inside. I'm pretty sure we have to do a little bit of sanding just to make sure everything is going to fit together snugly, but I think we're on the right track for sure. All these wires are nicely bent out of the way, so we shouldn't have to worry about that. All we have to do is basically make sure this fits down together. We'll run a little bit of glue on the outside, get that nicely sealed up, and I think we'll be moving along. This is a lot of fun, guys. I'm having a blast with this one. Now that we have everything kind of tacked into place, let's go ahead and check the lights. There we go. As you can kind of see, we've got 2 lights that shine backwards towards the pilot and co-pilot, and then the very back we have 2 floodlights that are actually emitting a little bit of light up along that rear bulkhead. So that's actually pretty cool. Like I mentioned, it might be a bit too bright on the very, very front of that, but we'll see once we get to that point. We might just want to go ahead and maybe put some plastic art up there or something and tone it down just a little bit. Now back onto the cockpit though, guys, I did notice that we're missing a little bit of detail. Since I don't actually intend on using the pilot, co-pilot, or the figures, they're just too small and I don't want to fool with painting them. We're going to go ahead and add in this little detail right here. This is like a control column, and I've noticed that the Falcon here doesn't actually have anything in the kit. So I'm going to go ahead and scratch build it. I pulled out a couple of parts and pieces here that might actually work pretty well. Some bomb shackles, some other shackles from I think an FW190 in 1/72nd scale, some actuators and whatnot, I think out of my F9F Cougar. We're just going to go ahead and just fit something together and make it work. Doesn't have to be 100% accurate, just has to be something there. Like I said, I don't intend on using the pilot or co-pilot. There's actually a lot of empty space in there, so I'm going to go ahead and add these, and hopefully that'll cut down on any open areas. Now, giving you a quick close-up here, guys, you can kind of see what I'm going for. There's a center control column that I've glued into the edge there on the instrument panel, and then I've taken this little piece of bent plastic that actually is out of an FW190 kit in 1/72nd. I think it's like a bomb shackle or something, trimmed and then glued onto the very front of that, and it almost kind of looks like a bicycle handlebar in a way, you know? Kind of comes out, slopes backwards. It's going to give you at least an impression of something being there. It's not 100% in scale, and it's not 100% accurate, but I mean, again, in 1/144 scale, I mean, I'm fine with this. This is going to be okay, you know? It doesn't have to be perfect, just has to have something there to occupy the space. Now for the control column itself, I'm using this little actuator from my F9F8P Photo Cougar build that I did a while back. And I just basically cut out the center section of an actuator. And here, of course, is that FW190 bomb shackle, which I will cut off right like that. And we can just trim that down and make sure that it looks about right. Doesn't have to be perfect, like I mentioned before. I just want it to look busy. I want it to have the appearance of there being some form of control stick there. And that's the nice thing about having a spares box, guys. You can go in there, rifle through your parts, find something that can work, and then repurpose it. So all in all, I think we're on the right track. And after a little bit of work, as we can see here, we have the control columns all nicely in place. They're not perfect, guys, mind you, but I like how they look. I think it adds a bit of extra interest, adds a part that they just didn't add here in the kit. Now let's go ahead and jump into our last time lapse of the day, guys. We're gonna do some priming here on the living quarters, prep them up for paint next time, also do a little bit of painting in that cockpit, get those control columns finished up, and we will be ready to go for next episode. So on with that time lapse, guys. Let's push on. All right, everybody, we are back, and I am having so much fun with this build so far, guys. It's a great kit for sure. Now, I've gone ahead and airbrushed everything here with some Staunerez gray primer. Everything is looking sharp. We'll have to come in and do some detail painting, however, like the seat cushions, the chair backs, all of that little detail. We'll have to go ahead and paint that, but we'll do that next episode. I want to make sure we have enough time here for the primer to cure before I come in and start throwing some paint around there. I want to go ahead and also paint white on the walls as opposed to the black on the walls that we see from the instructions. I think that's going to be a more accurate rendition here for the Lando Falcon. But anyway, guys, we're going to go ahead and call it quits for today. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Lando Falcon and Sci-Fi Wednesdays. The cockpit is looking great. We've got our lights in there. Next time, we'll tackle this living quarters area, see what we can do. So until then, you guys know the drill. Go out there, get yourself some bench time, have some fun, build something cool, and we'll see you back here on episode number 4 of the Lando Falcon here on Sci-Fi Wednesdays. Thanks so much, everybody. We'll see you soon.